Kamala Harris had the worst electoral performance for a Democrat since 1988. She was the first Democrat to lose the popular vote since 2004. When compared to Joe Biden's 2020 numbers, she underperformed in 45 states. Yes, I understand that she only had like 100 days to run her campaign, but during that time, she made multiple blunders. She refused to break away from the already failing Biden administration. She was running to the right on key issues, and she repeatedly had country over parties with Liz Cheney. And despite her internal polling showing that she was never ahead, she never switched up her strategy, which led to a terrible defeat in 2024. All of this indicates that she was a terrible selection for the 2024 presidential nomination. So why the fuck are we talking about running her again? I know it might be hard to believe, but there's actually a group of people online that think that Kamala Harris should run again. There's this group on Twitter called the Khive, and it's essentially blue MAGA. It's very funny that the same people that will yell at MAGA for being an unhinged cult who will blindly follow their leader doing whatever they do is also an unhinged cult blindly following their leader, supporting anything that they do. Found this photo from the election night. It's heartbreaking, but I can see a foreshadowing. Crumbs remain, but still not defeat. Her face still lingers in the icing. The cake is gone, but the hunger for change is only the beginning. I just don't know what I can say to make this post any funnier. Like this, it writes itself, man. There's a lot of these Kamala Stan accounts, and they kind of end up doing more PR for Kamala than Kamala has been doing in the past 3 months. Kamala Harris has only really had like 2 official public appearances since Trump's inauguration. She's also barely making any statements on the Trump presidency right now. Like very rarely will she make a post about it or tweet about it. I remember that the first time that I saw Kamala Harris after the inauguration was 6 weeks later, where she was asking me for money in a DNC ad. So yeah, that's cool. The Democratic Party is in a very dark place right now. The highest ranking member of the Democratic Party right now is technically Chuck Schumer. So you could maybe make the argument that Chuck Schumer is the current leader of the Democratic Party. Well, that's a very scary thought. So I like to go with a narrative that there is no leader of the Democratic Party right now, because that at least leaves a little bit of hope for someone to step into that leadership position. And there's been plenty of people in the party who have been kind of making moves towards that leadership position. You know, Tim Walz is out here doing stand-up comedy specials at red districts. Senator Chris Murphy is becoming like basically an internet celebrity by doing these almost daily videos online talking about the Trump administration. And AOC is accompanying Bernie Sanders in their Fighting Oligarchy tour, which is driving in humongous crowds all around the nation. What has Kamala Harris been up to for these past 3 months? Well, she's been looking into a book deal, looking into speaking engagements, talking to Ezra Klein about the abundance agenda, and chilling at one of the most exclusive golf clubs, talking to billionaires like Reid Hoffman. Sounds like a leader to me, you know. She's plotting, man. She's gonna give America abundance. I mean, even if you want to make the process that Kamala Harris is, you know, like processing the loss of the 2024 election, which sure, you know, that could be like a pretty hard thing to process. You know, half the country kind of denied you and said, fuck off. But even with that, if you want to be a leader, especially want to be the highest ranking leader in the nation, you can't just be sitting down and fucking eating Doritos and crying to Doug about how you lost the election. You gotta get out there and fight, dude. While you're out here processing your loss, the US residents are getting taken off the streets, crucial institutions are being dismantled, and tons of federal workers are losing their jobs. If you want to be a leader, dude, you gotta get out there and lead. Despite being pretty non-existent in the public eye, there still remains to be a group of people that believe that Kamala Harris is like the only hope that this country has. I feel like this kind of has a little bit to do with like, you know, like what could have been syndrome, I guess. Like anytime the Trump administration does anything wrong, these Kamala Stan accounts will always be quick to post a picture of Kamala with the caption, "This never would have happened if Kamala was president." There's a great example of this. It's a sign from the April 5th hands-off protests that reads, "If Kamala was president, we would all be at brunch," which basically just translates to, if the actions of the orange man didn't make me think that we were in a fascist dictatorship, I would go back to ignoring politics while my tax dollars bomb hospitals in Gaza. Take a look at this pretty unhinged tweet. This person claims that Kamala Harris is undeniably the leader of the party and that she's winning every single primary right now. Now, you might be thinking, fuck man, has Trump been flooding the zone so much that I missed out on some Democratic primaries? multiple primaries. No, this person is referring to early primary polling. I feel like every single week I see a new poll come out for the 2028 Democratic primary, and every single poll that I see has Kamala Harris at the top. This Survey USA poll from February has her at 37%. There's this Overton poll from March that has her at 48%. There's this YouGov poll from April that has her at 25%. And this Morning Consult poll from March has her at 36%. And while it's easy to look at this and be like, yep, you know, data doesn't lie. I would like to point out that we're still in 2025. 2028 is pretty far away from us. And as we just found out, a lot can happen in 3 months. So we'll see what happens in 3 years. I suspect the main reason why Kamala Harris keeps consistently polling at the top of these polls is simply because of name recognition. Back in 2005, after John Kerry lost the 2004 election, he consistently showed up in the top 3 spot for early 2008 primary election polling. The person who consistently showed up at number 1 was Hillary Clinton, who of course everyone knew because she was the first lady of the United States for, I don't know, 8 years, and she never left the political sphere, and she continued to be a senator for New York. These early primary polls are more of like a popularity contest than it is for an actual check of how voters will vote in the 2028 primary. To further this point, there was an Echelon Insights poll that came out a couple days ago. Cory Booker was in second place at 11%. This was a 9-point swing upward since the previous Echelon Insights poll that came out last month. I wonder if there is anything that Cory Booker did in the past month that gave him a national news story and introduced him to a whole new base of voters. Huh. We really shouldn't take these polls as any indication that Kamala Harris is the leader of the Democratic Party. Because honestly, if Harris was the leader of the Democratic Party, we'd be seeing more of her. These Kamala Stan accounts are also very petty. The other day, Bernie Sanders said something about joy during one of his rallies, and all these accounts started attacking it, going like, joy, like one lady that I know. As if Kamala Harris came up with the concept of joy. Bernie Sanders had 34,000 people at a Denver rally in March. This was the largest rally that Bernie Sanders had. A lot of people are taking this as a good sign, you know, finally people are kind of waking up to class consciousness. 34,000 people being at a Bernie rally is a very good thing for anyone who is on the left. Except for the Kamala Stan accounts, of course. This account replied to Bernie with the Kamala Harris rally at the Ellipse that drew 75,000 people. Sure, 75,000 people is a lot of people. However, I would like to point out that this was in Washington, D.C., and it was the last rally that Kamala had before the election, and it was a week before the election when arguably the most amount of voters were tuned into politics. Bernie, on the other hand, is holding this rally in Colorado, and it's an election off year. Who the fuck goes to a rally in March after the election? I mean, that's a big reason why that 34,000 number is a big deal. Kamala's rally was 1 week before the election. Bernie's rally is a year and a half away from the midterms. Here's another tweet. Kamala Harris has the right to say I told you so today and every day all the way to 11/7/28 when she wins the presidency. This tweet came after that awesome clip that we got from Kamala Harris when she did her second speaking engagement since losing the election.
Because, you know, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things. I'm not here, so I told you so.
Because I'm sure that is a message that will resonate with voters. In fact, Kamala, I think you should make I told you so your campaign slogan for 2028. Keep running that one, Kamala. By the way, even 3 months into the disaster of this presidency, a recent Overton Insights poll was conducted from March 24th to March 28th, and it asked voters if the 2024 presidential election was held again today, who would you vote for? Kamala Harris had 45% of the voter share, and Trump had 48%. So how's that I told you so message looking now, dude? To the Kamala Stan accounts, you can tweet all you want about how Kamala Harris told you that Donald Trump's tariffs would raise the cost of living to $4,000 per year. But in reality, those people who voted for Donald Trump probably can't tell you a single actual policy that Kamala Harris stood for because she kept talking about fucking saving democracy or something like that. Kamala Harris didn't win the 2024 election, not because it was rigged. Yes, there are people out there that think the 2024 election was rigged. I know. Kamala Harris lost because she was just a status quo candidate. She was the vote for me because I'm not him candidate. She was the vote for me because you have no other option candidate. I do have to sympathize with Kamala just a little bit here. In a way, she was kind of set up to fail. She kind of, only had 100 days to run her campaign. She was a part of a failing administration. But even then, I feel like she had plenty of options to overcome those challenges. Well, maybe not the 100 days thing, but she was teed up multiple times to break away from the Biden administration, and she failed to do that. Kamala Harris received 6 million fewer votes than Biden did in 2020, and there was a 2% decrease in voter turnout this year. When 2020 Biden voters were asked, why didn't you vote for Kamala, 29% of it said that it was her support for Israel, because she refused to break away from the Biden administration's stance on Israel, despite after multiple voters expressing their views on the matter. That 29% was the highest percentage on the list. The second highest percentage on the list was the economy. Kamala Harris also probably should not have campaigned all the time with Liz Cheney. I don't know why she kept campaigning with Liz Cheney. If you are a Kamala stan, please look into Liz Cheney. I guarantee you will think this was a bad idea too. Kamala Harris didn't really have any super revolutionary ideas that she brought to the table. When Kamala Harris was asked about the economy, she kept talking about the child tax credit, expanding it to $6,000, or giving first-time home buyers $25,000, or giving small businesses up to $50,000 to start up their small business, because she loves small businesses, which is all like well and good, but these are not things that middle and working class families will look at and go, yes, that will bring my cost of living down. Like, I swear to God, she talked more about her fucking love for small businesses and her auntie or whatever who had a small business than her banning price gouging policy, which was an actual good policy that would have affected the middle and working class in a positive way. CBS exit polling from a few days after the election shows that 75% of people polled found inflation to be some kind of hardship, and 69% of Trump voters saw that the economy was bad. Kamala Harris and the Democrats kept saying that inflation was down and that we have the best economy in the world. And while that may actually be true, you can't keep telling voters that, expecting them to magically feel like their wallets aren't hurting them, when their wallets are telling them something different than the politician that is telling them to not listen to their wallets. From that same CBS poll, 73% of Trump voters wanted change. A CNN exit poll shows that 72% of voters were disappointed with the direction of the country. People wanted change in this country, and for most people that meant not electing the same person who has been in office for the past 4 years. Now you might make the argument of like, well, why doesn't Kamala Harris just do the "are you really better off than you were 4 years ago" thing that Donald Trump kept doing? And my response to that would be, is that really the type of leader that you want for this country? Our next left-leaning president is going to have a lot of work to do. They are going to have to rebuild key institutions that are better and more efficient than the creaky but still beneficial institutions that Trump and Elon are gutting. Our next president is going to have to instill trust in a brand new public workforce while also establishing new protections for that public workforce so a president can't come in and 4 years later and just gut them all again. Our next president is going to have to reestablish key alliances with countries that Trump is actively destroying. And that's just the beginning. Like, there's so much stuff that our next president is going to have to do. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 3 years? Our next president shouldn't just be someone who wants to just expand Medicare, but should be an advocate for a single-payer healthcare system, so that way we are not the only developed democracy in the world that does not have universal healthcare. You can be the biggest Kamala Harris supporter in the world, but still feel that Kamala Harris was a forced nominee. Biden should have stuck to his word of being a one-term president and a bridge to the next generation, and he should have never went for a re-election campaign. The Democratic Party should not have allowed him to seek re-election after witnessing his cognitive decline. And we should have had an actual primary in 2024 to pick out a leader who would actually signify change in this country. And I guarantee you, if we did have a primary in 2024, Kamala Harris probably would not have been the presidential nominee. After watching Kamala's campaign very closely ever since Biden endorsed her, I casted my vote for Kamala Harris, but I was very bummed about it. I was bummed that this was the better option than the fucking other guy who wants to, deport everybody. Her campaign did not make me feel confident that she could bring together a increasingly divided country, and her campaign did not make me feel confident in her ability to lead reform for the working and middle class families in this country. Nobody should be propping up Kamala Harris on a pedestal saying that she's the only hope this country has, because let's face it, a year ago, you didn't even give a fuck about her. You should always be weary of politicians. You should never blindly follow a politician and anything that they say. And you certainly should not stand a politician like they're fucking Taylor Swift. A couple months ago, I was super into Chris Murphy. I was fucking Chris Murphy pilled, dude. I was telling my friends, look out for this guy. He could be the next president. I even told my mom to follow Chris Murphy. Over time though, I became more and more weary of Murphy, realizing that he kind of just, you know, talks the talk and he doesn't really do a lot to walk the walk. He's APAC funded, and when he was teed up by Jon Stewart to support universal health care, he opted for a "we need lower drug prices" answer, you know, to probably save his ass from the wealthy donors. If you truly look at everything a politician has done and you agree with everything that they have done to the point where you think that they are the only hope that we have for a 2028 win, I feel like you're not that far off from the people that you criticize on the other side of the political spectrum that do the exact same thing.